everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to talk tennis and the eagerly awaited French Open final between Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. So there will be spoilers in this video, so I will warn you now, if you don't know the result yet or the scoreline, I advise you to stop watching this video now, go away, catch up with the highlights or the match if you've saved it somewhere, and then come back and then watch the rest of this video. So then we go to this match, and a historically significant victory for Rafael Nadal, winning his 13th French Open and even more importantly his 20th Grand Slam. He won the match in 3 sets over Djokovic, 6-love, 6-2, 7-5 in a match I think lasted just over 2.5 hours. Rafa was really completely dominant. He destroyed Djokovic for the most part, particularly in the first 2 sets, and really this was surprising I think a lot of people, because I think Rafa was perhaps the favourite, but it was a very tight comparison with Djokovic. Many were anticipating the match to go at least 4 sets, possibly another 5-set epic like so many of the matches in the rivalry have gone in the past. But I think overall Rafa showed again that why he is literally considered not just the king of clay, but literally the god of clay. Because whilst he didn't necessarily overpower Djokovic, but I think this was more of a strategical win. He had great length of shots, but he was also using his court positioning very well, and the tactics, that was the key, the tactics and the use of shot. And I think what won Rafa this match today, I think, was the looping backhand, because he was using it a lot to really neutralise Novak's court position by putting it straight to him, so Novak couldn't use the angles as much. If you go throughout the match and a lot of the previous encounters between the two, we don't know how much Novak loves those cross-court angles where he can really use his elasticity to really put Rafa out of position, because he's got that great shot of length and we can really bend down and stretch and use the ball to hit the really baselines when he's attacking Rafa from the cross-court positions. But because Rafa was looping the backhand, it was making the shots more difficult for Novak to get those angles, and of course it rooted them more centrally to the court, which meant then he couldn't create the angle shots. So then this allowed Rafa to step more into the play and he could attack Novak a lot more from the baseline. That was the key. And I think as well Rafa was serving really good as well, and he was hitting good length on the shots. That's always the key, I think, when Rafa plays Djokovic. If he can use his length of shot well, then that means he can stay in the rallies longer and really make it a much more grueling and tough match for Novak, who really the onus was on him to hit through Rafa. And I think many people have made a lot of the conditions throughout this whole tournament, really. The fact that the roof was used and it was much more wet and damp. Normally the French Open, as we all know, takes place in June, where it's a lot more hotter and humid conditions here. So many people felt Novak would actually be the favourite because of the conditions, but he just couldn't hit through Rafa. And we saw more, particularly in the first set when, Rafa destroyed him, winning 6-love. As the match went on, particularly in the second set, Novak was becoming more desperate and he was trying to go for much more powerful serves and hit much more powerful ground strokes, and this is where the errors were really creeping in. So Rafa could just stay more consistent, keep the shots length, keep the shots deep, and that means when Novak was going for his shots, he would make the errors. And that was really, I think, a large contribution to why Rafa was able to win the first 2 sets comfortably. And then when we went into the third set, Rafa again got the early break, but then Novak broke back, and then he consolidated his game to go 4-3 in the third set. And this is when really the pivotal moments were going to be decided as to whether we were going to get a 4th set and maybe 5th set, because Rafa was just starting to tighten up a bit in his service games. Novak was getting the more upper hand in the rallies. He was going for it a lot more on his shots. But this is the challenge on Rafa. You really have to play lights out tennis for likely at least 4 sets, right? And this is the determining factor between a 2 out of 3 sets match and a 3 out of 5 sets match. You've got to play consistently and hit winners for 3 hours, 4 hours plus. And especially when it's on the clay, it's just so hard, because the clay, it gives Nadal enough time to get ball back. he can retrieve more, and he can get the ball back with bounce and spin. So you have to literally hit about 70-80 winners, and even then it might not be enough. And that was a dilemma that was always facing Novak on here, and I think he just realised he was going to go all out and try and be as aggressive as he can, but Nadal was just too clutch, too tough, and was able to just resist and repel Novak back in the crucial point. So he broke back again, and then when we got to 5-all, Novak really at this point was just making loads of errors. Nadal was just hanging in there. Novak conceded for Rafa to go 6-5 up in the third set, and then Rafa pretty much consolidated the win in the final game. And when Rafa hits an ace on match point, that's when you can realise how well Rafa was playing throughout this match. So again, it was just a complete dominant, a phenomenal performance from Rafa. Again, it just adds more significance to his career and cements further his greatness on the clay. That's now the 13th French Open title. Incredible. I think he's played 15 overall, and he's won 13. The only losses come in 2009 against Robert Soderlin, and of course in 2015 against Novak. And I think we all agree that 2015 loss, Rafa wasn't right. That was really when he was declining in terms of his physical levels, and he really wasn't the normal high level competitor that we consider him throughout in those years of 2015 and 2016. But it's just a phenomenal record. You know, he's played 102 matches and he's won 100, and this is just an unparalleled dominance on the surface. I really don't think we're going to see this again for a long time. You know, I think prior to this, we always looked at Pete Sampras and his dominance on Wimbledon, and back then we thought that was a phenomenal level, but this is just really in a complete other stratosphere. I mean, look at the amount of matches he's won, and not only that, I think what's more important is the opponents he's played against. If you look at most of his finals, they have been either against Roger or Novak. There's been a couple of finals he's played against TM, of course, in the last couple of years. There was one final, I think, against David Ferrer. More often than not, during this amazing run at the French Open, he has had to beat the best consistently and throughout. And again, this was Roger at his peak years. You know, I've talked about it many times, 2004 and 2000 to 2007. You know, that was the one big asterisk. He couldn't beat Nadal at the French Open and had to wait until Nadal was knocked out against Soderlin before getting his French win. And again, Novak, who has really been the top competitor for Nadal, his biggest rival throughout the 10 years, and he's consistently had to beat consistently had to beat Novak in the overall years. We had, of course, 2012, that epic in 2013, 2014, of course, as well as today's match as well. So no one can really doubt his overall dominance on the clay surface, because he's consistently had to beat the best within this great run that he's on. So it's just a phenomenal achievement for, really, now we have to agree, a phenomenal player on this surface, and not only on this surface, overall. And it's going to reinvigorate the debate about who is the greatest ever. For me now, personally, I think this determines Rafa as perhaps now the greatest ever. I'm not going to concentrate too much on that overall, because I will do that in a separate video. What's even more phenomenal, of course, is that the lack of lead-up tournament play that he's had, because he only played the Rome Masters, because the tour, as we all know, has been disrupted following COVID. He won 2 tournament wins, and then he lost to Diego Schwartzman. But apart from that, he's had literally no lead-up play, and he's ended up destroying his most feared rival in straight sets at the age of 35 now, remember. So it really is an incredible achievement, and we'll really ponder now how many more French Opens can he win, because what this tournament win has showed, that as long as Rafa is physically fit and he's physically able, then really, who can really stop him? Who can really stop him at the French? Novak is going to get older, as we all know, and as I mentioned before, he only really beat Rafa when Rafa really wasn't 100% physically. TM has tried a couple of times, but not really pushed Rafa all the way. You know, he's won one set, I think was the most recent French Open final that they played, but more often than not, Rafa just toughs it out and then overpowers him to get the victory, normally in 4 sets. So who else really is there? Who else really is out there that we can say can have a potential chance against beating Rafa? There really isn't. I mean, Tsitsipas, no, not really. Zverev, definitely not. Medvedev, you know, he's more of a hard court player than a clay court player. There really isn't anybody else out there. I just can't see that can really produce any kind of sustained challenge to Rafa on the clay. So if we look at it now, the only really deciding factors that can beat Rafa is age, because eventually age will catch up. Nobody can defeat age, and he will eventually slow down and he won't be able to get balls back in the future, and his stamina and endurance will eventually subside, right? Also, the other factor is injury. We all know Rafa is prone to injuries, although to be fair, he's actually lasted in the game a lot longer than most of us anticipated. You know, 35 and still at the top level of the game. So he can manipulate the injury case to an extent, right? By taking time out of tournaments, picking and choosing his schedule more frequently. He doesn't really now have to go about and play all of these Masters tournaments because, you know, he's won them enough times, and people will say, well, he's still got to win the World Tour finals. Yes, okay, that would be nice to have on his resume, but I don't think that's a crucial element. I don't think he doesn't necessarily have to go all out within the Asian swing to try and win the World Tour finals. So he really now will just manage his schedule even more so than what he already does, and just make sure he's prime and ready for the French Open each year. And as this year has shown, as long as he's physically fit and physically into good form, who can really stop him, right? So it's just a phenomenal achievement for a phenomenal tennis player. For now, we just concentrate again and acknowledge just a fantastic achievement for Nadal. It's great to see as well many tributes on social media and Twitter from other players, and especially from Roger Federer. I thought that was a great and very classy touch from Roger. If you go, I think it was on his Instagram post where he acknowledged the greatness of Rafa's achievement and their friendship and their rivalry over the years. So that was top class from Roger. I was looking for some sort of recognition from him, and we got that as well. So really not much too much to say. Rafa, without question, the god of clay, the king of clay, the emperor of clay, whatever you want to call him. A magnificent performance, again toppling his what many may consider his true rival in Djokovic in such devastating fashion. But overall, he is without question the greatest on clay, and I think if we really think about it now, if not now, he will certainly now go on to become the greatest of all time, the greatest ever tennis player, and time will tell, certainly within the next 2 years, whether he will be able to have that distinction for many years going forward, or whether Novak can come back and storm through and maybe even get to 21, but that's looking very unlikely at the moment. So those are my thoughts for now on a magnificent and phenomenal win for Rafael Nadal, his 13th French Open and his 20th Grand Slam victory overall. There'll be many debates going back and forward, I'm pretty sure, over the next coming weeks and months for his greatest of all time status, and I will cover that as I mentioned in another video. But for now, congratulations to Rafa on a 13th French Open, phenomenal achievement, a dominating performance over his greatest rival. Wish him all the best for the future, and only really in the next up and coming years will we truly fathom what this guy is achieving. A truly phenomenal achievement, not just in tennis, but I think overall in sports. And I think we could all agree that beating Nadal at the French Open is surely the greatest challenge with all sports, not just tennis. So those are my thoughts on Rafa Nadal's French Open win in 2020. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think now he's the greatest, or do you think he's got to win a couple of non-clay slams, you know, primarily one more Australian Open and maybe one more Wimbledon to become the greatest, or you still think does he need more weeks at number one and a World Tour finals as well before you can truly say he's the undisputed greatest of all time? So let me know what you think in the comments below. But that's it for now. Just take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances. 13 French Opens for Rafa Nadal, and I will see you very, very soon.